and welcome to another edition of Political Empire. I'm your host, Kim Pierceall, and we are going to be talking quite a bit about Riverside County today. In particular, a budget that may result in a little less than 200 layoffs, as well as a very contentious Riverside County supervisor's race that has brought in quite a few bucks. But first, a little bit of a news roundup. The president recently nominated a local to serve as the leader of the Federal Aviation Administration. Michael Huerta grew up in a rural area outside of Rubidoux, went to Notre Dame High School, even delivered this paper, the Press and the Enterprise, when it used to be two, and went to UC Riverside and majored in political science, graduating in 1978. He's been leading the FAA since the end of last year after the prior leader was arrested on charges of drunk driving, Randy Babbitt. So now we'll see if that nomination goes through and if indeed we'll have a local leading the FAA and what that may mean for some of our local agencies that are looking to work with the FAA on a few issues, namely Ontario Airport and San Bernardino Airport. And now we're going to go to our Riverside County political news. And in the studio today is Jeff Horseman, our resident Riverside County political analyst. How are you doing, Jeff?
I'm well, and you?
Doing good. And talk to me a little bit about this week's budget situation, because Riverside County was talking about their very hefty budget. There's always concerns about revenue and then the costs, and if those costs are going to be covered by the revenue. And a particularly thorny issue is usually how do you handle the big cost items? Fire, police, how did they discuss working with fire and police? Because, yeah, you don't want to cut it because it's political, but hey, it's a high cost item.
That's correct. Once again, the Riverside County Board of Supervisors is looking at another tough budget year where revenues don't match up with expenses, and it's possible they might have as many as 200 layoffs. And what's always been a difficult issue for them is of the part of the budget they control, police and fire, public safety makes about 60% of that. And what you have is you have an elected district attorney, you have an elected sheriff who are both pushing for, well, while they understand the budget situation, they're also, in particularly in the Sheriff Sniff's case, he's pushing for deputies, he's pushing for coverage, and he pointed out that they had to cut back on deputy coverage in unincorporated areas, and that's kind of coming back to bite them. And so the point he was trying to make last week was, hey, I'm trying to work with you on getting my budget, getting the deficit under control and getting my budget in line, but at the same time, you need to help me out in order to do my job.
It's interesting, though, because prior years when they've discussed the budget, it's been extremely acrimonious between the supervisors trying to do their job, the sheriff and the district attorney lobbying on behalf of their departments. That didn't happen this year.
No, I mean, I wouldn't say it was quite a love fest, but it definitely was a departure from prior years in which the former district attorney came in and had all like a slideshow and back and forth, and the county executive officer Bill Luna was making the case that to Sniff that, hey, we really need to cut the budget here, and Sniff was resisting that. Matter of fact, Bob Buster even made the quip that Zillerback's presentation was kind of dull, and to which Zillerback replied, hey, I'll take dull any day of the week, this time around. So yeah, definitely not as many fireworks as prior years.
Well, and speaking of Supervisor Bob Buster, he is the incumbent in a very contentious race for the 1st District seat among the Riverside County Supervisors. He has 2 challengers, and wanted to talk to you about that because all 3 of them have raised quite a bit of money. First, tell us who's running in that race. The election's coming up June 5th, and how much have they raised?
Correct. The race features 3 candidates, the incumbent Bob Buster, Assemblyman Kevin Jeffries, who's term limited out, and a former California Highway Patrol officer named Mike Subaru. And what's interesting is you look at all 3 of their campaign finance reports, and all 3 of them have more than $200,000 in the bank. Normally these types of elections you see the incumbent having a load of money and the challengers just struggling to print out a round of flyers or a round of campaign signs. And so, what this indicates is that, this is going to be a very hotly contested race with a lot of interest, and, it's going to be tight.
So, Jeff, tell me, what does the fundraising mean? Because one candidate in particular, candidate Subaru, has raised quite a bit of funds from just one entity, correct?
Well, yeah, you look at Subaru's campaign donors, and what really stands out is that he has the backing of labor, which isn't all that surprising given that the labor unions and Buster have had a very contentious relationship over the years. The Riverside Sheriff's Association, which represents the deputies and other public safety personnel, actually cut him a $100,000 check this year. And so what that means is he's running very much, if you look at his campaign material, as on his law enforcement experience as a law enforcement candidate who's going to bring common sense back to the county administrative building. On the other hand, doubtless he's going to have to contend with charges that, hey, unions basically bankrolling you, you're in their pocket, and how can we trust you to act independently if you get elected?
Well, it's going to be interesting. The election isn't until June 5th. They're bound to raise more money until then from different interests, and certainly the war chests are going to expand. Jeff, thanks so much for being here today to talk about Riverside County. Appreciate it. And we're going to be right back. Dan Bernstein is going to give us a little bit of commentary about District Attorney Zellerbach's presentation to the Riverside County Board of Supervisors.
I've been writing a column for almost 30 years, and one of my solemn responsibilities has been to make up nicknames for local politicians. When I first started out, the mayor of Riverside was Ab Brown. He was old school. Maybe I was channeling the Flintstones when I nicknamed him Mayor Abadabba. He didn't like it too much, but the name stuck. But pretty soon, Abadabba was defeated by Councilwoman Terry Frizzell. She was peppery and pesky and a little nutty. After a while, I just nicknamed her the Frizz. She didn't like that, but the name stuck. Then I hit a wall. The Frizz was beaten by Ron Loveridge. He wasn't a nut. He wasn't old school. He was upstanding, buttoned down, a college professor, a councilman. On election night, I remember a prominent lawyer, Art Littleworth, counseling me, take your time. Don't rush things. So I took my time. I waited and waited. And maybe I was channeling one of those deep-throated FM DJs when I nicknamed him Mayor Love. It sure saved a lot of space. Time went on, and Grover Trask, who I nicknamed the handsome DA for obvious reasons, retired, and Rod Pacheco ran unopposed and won election. He had such promise. But pretty soon he started alienating everybody. He was abrasive. I wanted to help him out, so I nicknamed him Cuddles. It didn't work. And he was beaten a couple of years ago by Paul Zellerbach, and I hit the wall again. Ever since January of 2011, I've been waiting. When am I going to nickname this guy? How am I going to fulfill my responsibility? A few months ago, Zellerbach posed in a tutu for a ballet fundraiser. That was tempting, but I didn't think it captured him. Then last week, I think I got a break. Zellerbach went before the Board of Supervisors to make a budget presentation. These are pretty ordinary things. But in the old days, in the Cuddles days, they were very combative. But last week, smooth as glass. And Bob Buster, the supervisor, was so grateful, he said Zellerbach was dull. And Zellerbach didn't take offense. He said, in this day and age, I'll take dull any day. And that's when the light bulb went on. Dullerbach.
Dan, thanks so much for your insightful commentary always, and we will be back again with another edition of Political Empire. In the meantime, check PE.com for all of your political insight needs. Thanks so much.